Thomas. He was a disciple of Christ, and he gained the name Doubting Thomas because he doubted so many things. Now, we're going to be reading from the book of John, which is one of the synoptic gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John almost did not make the synoptic gospels because it was so different from the other three synoptics. The other three synoptics dealt with physical events, where John dealt with the unknown. It dealt with the unseen. It dealt with miracles. The book of John was different from other synoptic gospels because it was more spiritual, and it emphasized in the identity of Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and how we as believers should respond to Christ's teachings, God the Son. And so the Bible begins to tell us that there was an instance where Christ then says to Mary Magdalene to go and tell the disciples that he resurrected, that he was not dead, but he was alive. And she ran and she informed the disciples of that. And everybody right away was shocked that Christ was alive, but Thomas, he stood up and he said, I'm paraphrasing here, that he needed to see it for himself. He needed to see it for himself. He did not want to go by what she was saying. He did not want to go by what the disciples how they were reacting. And he wanted to see for himself that Christ was physically alive. And in this illustration in the back, of course, it's an illustration, and even the characters aren't real, but it kind of gives you an idea of Thomas's doubt. In this illustration, this person is portraying to be Christ. These are some of the disciples, and this is Doubting Thomas. And he doubted so much that when he stood before Christ, he wanted to put his finger inside the wound just to be sure that this was Christ. Think about that one. Now, if one of the disciples, one of the 12 that walked with Christ, shared, ate with Christ, lived with Christ, performed miracles with Christ, doubted Christ, what gives you the right to say that someone else living today does not have the right to do so? Yet, watch this, you condemn this person, but he didn't. You spoke bad about this person, and you made this person feel horrible, but Christ didn't. Because Christ knew that there was a way that he was supposed to address Thomas. He knew that there was a way that you address people that don't believe. And the Bible reads as follows. It says, let not your heart be troubled. Interesting, because as that scripture begins to open, right away you notice that the scripture is scribed in red. Meaning that this is Christ speaking. I want you to compare the way Christ addresses the issue of non-belief versus how we address the issue of non-belief. But yet we are supposed to be more like Christ. Our walk coming back to Christ is supposed to be to regain our likeness and be more like Christ, to get back what we once had and we once lost. Christ says, let not your heart be troubled. Don't let your heart be troubled. Doubt starts here, not here.
This is Pastor Max, and I approve this message.